For the final time, we're going to run through a complete 7-round Atlanta Falcons mock draft for the people. Now, quick reminder, come hang out with us for round 1 here at the Atlanta Falcons Today YouTube channel, as we'll be live for round 1 of the draft. So if you are looking for a spot to take the draft in that doesn't involve like ESPN sharing really sad and depressing stories about all these prospects on the biggest days of their lives, come hang out with us because we'll actually be talking about football. But let's talk about what Atlanta has to work with in the draft. Quick refresher, they have 8 picks in the upcoming draft, and I think we could see some movement from them. But let's get into our mock draft, beginning with the 8th overall pick, where I have the Atlanta Falcons selecting Alabama outside linebacker Dallas Turner. I know this is very chalky, but I'm going to do my best to predict what actually will happen, not what I would do, because I'm not the one making the calls here. And to me, Dallas Turner just makes too much sense. It has been the most commonly mocked player throughout all of mock drafts this entire offseason. 6'3", 247, and he runs faster than wide receivers when he gets after the quarterback. Athletically, he's one of the better edge rushers we have seen in the draft over the last few years. Now, he's not one of the biggest. He's right around 250, and I could see Atlanta trying to put some weight on him, but he's not going to be like an Aiden Hutchinson-sized defensive end. But what he will be able to do is fill out his frame a little bit more and be an awesome piece of clay for Raheem to mold into an absolute quarterback-seeking heat missile. Now, he does have a tendency to vanish from time to time. 9 out of the 14 games last year for the Crimson Tide, he had 3 or fewer pressures, but he still was generating a lot of production. 15 tackles for loss, 10 sacks. He was in the shadow of Will Anderson, his best friend for a while, but last year, all eyes were on him, and he still delivered for the Crimson Tide. The Falcons need help up front for their pass rush. Lorenzo Carter and Malone cannot be rotational members of this pass rushing unit if teams want to take Atlanta seriously. This may not be the best player on the board, but I think position-wise, it's just going to carry too much weight for Atlanta to pass on Dallas Turner. I will add, you could see the Falcons trade out of pick number 8 if they get a really good offer because a team wants to move up and get a wide receiver like Roma Dunze, or if J.J. McCarthy starts to slip, or if the Falcons want to stockpile 2025 draft picks because they fear the NFL may throw the book at them for the tampering allegations revolving around Kirk Cousins. But for one last time, Dallas Turner is a Falcon. I will put it in stone right now. Rosetta Stone, move over. You have a new piece of history. So let me know, should the Falcons draft Dallas Turner? Do you like this pick or not? Just black and white, yes or no. On to round number 2, where I tossed and turned with this, but I went with cornerback Max Melton out of Rutgers. I think the Falcons may wait for wide receiver, given they have 2 third-round selections, and the wide receiver draft class is much deeper than the cornerback draft class. Now, here's the background on the Rutgers DB. 5'11", $187, really athletic, really quick, great linear speed, 4.39 40-yard dash. He was a 4-year starter for the Scarlet Knights, outstanding speed and ball skills. There's a lot to like about Max Melton. There's also a lot to be concerned about, and I think that's why he's not going to go round 1. He's a bit handsy. He tends to have some laundry around him on the field, and then there's some character concerns. In September of 2021, he was arrested for a drive-by paintball gun shooting. Very strange. Not a good thing. People got hurt. Don't really know what led to him thinking that was a good idea. He was suspended 3 games by Rutgers, and he says he learned from it and grew up. And hey, everyone makes mistakes when they're in college. I sure hope that my future employers don't look back at the decisions I made at Tennessee when I was 19, 20, 21 years old. But if Atlanta can move on from those character concerns and feel like he's learned from that and he's matured, then I think from a football standpoint, this pick makes a lot of sense, especially when you look at Atlanta's DB room. A.J. Terrell is entering the final year of his contract. Is Clark Phillips ready to take on a CB2 role? Brand new coaching staff on the defensive side coming in here. Don't know how they view Clark Phillips, a pick made last year by Atlanta. So I think the Falcons ultimately with Raheem Morris, they will double dip on defense with their first two selections since they took A.J. Terrell and Marlon Davidson back in 2020 because Arthur Smith has leaned heavily on offense to begin the draft the last few years. I think Raheem Morris, he pushes back and he goes defense with his first two picks. Now, before we get to the next selection, we actually have a trade as I am making some moves for the Falcons where I have Atlanta jumping back into the end of round 2, giving the Detroit Lions, who are a little bit short on draft capital this year, the 74th overall pick, the first of Atlanta's 2 third-rounders, and the Falcons' 4th rounder to jump up 13 spots. And after jumping up 13 spots, I've got the Falcons taking Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. Now, this would be a bit of a fall for Pearsall, but there's a lot of really good wide receivers in this draft that we're not really sure of that second and third tier, who goes in what order. But if he really is available at the end of round 2, I think Atlanta should be aggressive. They should look for quality over quantity at this point and move up for the surefire hands guy from Gainesville, who ran a 6'1", who's 6'1", 191, and ran a 4.41 40-yard dash. Watching him at Florida last year, he didn't strike me as a guy that would move that quickly at the combine. He's an incredible route runner, which I know that term can tend to be used very loosely. What does that mean, really? Like, I mean, he's good at running routes. What I mean is he's got great recognition of how the defense lines up, and based on the type of formation and the coverage and the play call they're in, he knows where to go. He knows how to read a defense going, all right, if you want to give me this zone, I'll sit right here, and it'll be an easy completion for my quarterback. He's also got the best hands. Like, when you really think about what a wide receiver's number one job is, it's to catch the football. And Ricky Pearsall, he may be top 3 in this draft at pure catching abilities. And then you look at Atlanta's wide receiver room, which have seen some additions so far through free agency with Darnell Mooney and trading for Rondale Moore, but I don't think they should be satisfied. I also think the Atlanta Falcons' Zach Robinson offense will see a lot of 11 personnel, and that means 3 wide receivers on the field at once. This wide receiver room is rather thin. If one of those 3 guys suffers an injury, like players that no one knows will be taking meaningful snaps. They should add to this wide receiver room in the first 2 days of the draft. Get aggressive for a wide receiver in rounds 2 to 3. It's a very deep wide receiver class, so I don't mind going cornerback first if I'm Atlanta, but take one of your 2 third-round picks, bundle it with something else, and move up to get a guy at the end of round number 2. We're going to look at the rest of my mock draft in just a moment, but first, I do want to share with you guys some awesome information about our proud sponsor today, Game Time. If you want to go catch a Braves game or a concert at the Fox Theater or any other local sporting event, make sure you download the Game Time app and get $20 off your first purchase with the code CHATSPORTS. Now, one of my favorite features about Game Time is if you don't like planning in advance, which isn't me, but I hang out with those just absolute heathens, well, with Game Time, you can actually get tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after the event kicks off. So download the Game Time app today and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video, but shout out to Game Time and get $20 off when you use code CHAT Sports. Terms apply, but Game Time, it's the best place for last-minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed. On to round number 3, where the Falcons at pick 79, the latter of their 2 third-rounders, they go defensive tackle from Clemson in this mock, Ruke Orhorhoro. Now, he's 6'4", 294 pounds, 3-year starter for Clemson that's got really good athletic traits. The issue is I think he fell victim to Clemson just kind of sucking the last few years, and there wasn't a lot of spotlight on him. But you can look at what he's done the last few years for the Tigers. 5 sacks, 4 sacks, back-to-back seasons from the interior defensive line. People are raving about his size and speed, and I think this would be a wise investment for Atlanta. Grady Jarrett's coming off a torn ACL. He's going to be 30 years old. David Onyemata's already on the wrong side of 30. I think investing in the trenches is never a bad idea. And the last thing you want to see is Kirk Cousins put up 32 points for the Falcons, but then the defense can't make a stop on 3rd and 3, and the other team gets a first, and they're in field goal range, and they win at 33-32. So investing in your defensive line is never a bad idea in my book. Moving on here, no 4th round. Remember, that was traded away to get Ricky Pearsall. But in round 5, I go quarterback now, and I go with Michael Pratt out of Tulane. One, I am in the mindset of it's never a bad idea to take a quarterback. It's just such a valuable position. It's the most valuable position in all of professional sports. It's worth throwing a dart at every single year in the draft. And there's a lot to like about Michael Pratt, and I think he could really benefit from sitting behind a guy like Kirk Cousins, where I see a lot of similarities in their gameplay. First off, good size, lots of experience, started 43 games for the Green Wave. He doesn't have incredible arm strength, but then again, it's not like Kirk Cousins has an absolute howitzer of an arm. So we can really learn from Kirk Cousins too, how do you overcome not having the strongest arm in the league to be as successful and as rich as you are? Now, Pratt has a lot of experience, but that also means he's got a lot of wear and tear on his body. Look at his stats over the last 4 years. He's got one thing consistent. He's played nearly 90% of every season, but he's never actually been able to really put together a full, complete season because he's always dealt with an injury or two from time to time. So I think Atlanta will likely end up drafting a quarterback. I don't think it's wise, smart, intelligent, insert whatever Mad Lib adjective you want for them to do it in the first 3 rounds of the draft. But in round 5, I don't mind adding a backup quarterback because it's not like Taylor Heineke should have that job just gifted to him. Why not bring Pratt in for some competition? Because half of the teams learned last year, you need to have a good backup QB because your starter may go down. So for Atlanta, bring in some good backup play for the Falcons. Now, what round would you draft a QB? Very much okay with them going quarterback in round 5. Maybe even round 4, to be honest with you. I do think backup quarterback, if you're ranking all 53 spots on the roster, probably slots in around 30. It's not more important than any of the 22 starters, but it's pretty close to some of those backups. So I'd go with round 5. On to round 6 now in this mock draft, where I'm going to go with Ohio State safety Josh Proctor at pick 187. He's 6'1", 199 pounds. Doesn't have elite athletic traits to his game, and that's why he's going to be a day 3 pick. 4.45, 40-yard dash. He's also on the older side. He's dealt with a lot of injuries in Columbus. 25 years old, suffered some pretty gruesome injuries for the Buckeyes. But last year, he was one of the better safeties in college football. And that really showed. I mean, from his coverage standpoint to the playmaking abilities, a lot of tackles, showed that he can take down players in open space. And Atlanta's safety room, it's got an all-pro in Jesse Bates. But then there are some questions. Like, is DeMarco Hellams ready to be a starter? Are they ready to move on from Richie Grant as a starter? I think in day 3, you can take a roll of the dice on a guy like Josh Proctor, who a lot of teams are going to overlook because of the age and the injury history. But Atlanta can afford to take a flyer on him because if it doesn't work out, they weren't banking on him being the starter. And if it does, they're going to get a guy that was super productive last year that slipped through the cracks because of injuries and age, and that may benefit Atlanta, and that's a way they can find him in round 6. Now, a teammate that I don't think Josh Proctor will be too fond of is Michigan edge rusher Jaylen Harrell. This is how I wrap up the mock draft here at pick 197. 6'3", 247 pounds, almost identical size to Dallas Turner, and this is just going to show how athletic Dallas Turner is. Harrell ran a 4.68 40-yard dash. Turner ran a 4.47. So we're talking 0.2 of a second faster. Now, he was a 2-year starter for Michigan. And if you talk to fans of the Wolverines, they'll tell you he is a high motor, extremely effort and competitive-driven player that led the Wolverines in a lot of categories last year, which was the best defense in college football, arguably. So, sure, he may not be the fastest or the strongest or the lengthiest player in this draft, but if you're one of the best players on the best defense in college football, something tells me that when the pads come on, you know how to play the game. So I'm very much okay with double dipping at edge rusher to round out this draft. Now, how would you grade my mock draft? Let me know down in the comment section. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F. I'd give myself an A-. I really do like this mock draft that I cooked up, and I hope Terry Fontenot had a pen and paper and was taking notes. Now let's look at how I think the actual round one is going to go. Just going to throw one more mock draft your way because why not? I've got Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May going top 3. There's a lot of smoke around New England. I think they stay put. At 4, I've got the Vikings trading up with the Cardinals to get J.J. McCarthy. After trading back, I've got Arizona jumping back up yet again with the Chargers and getting Marvin Harrison all along. I think the Giants go get their next Odell Beckham and Malik Neighbors. The Titans improve the worst offensive line of football with Joe Alt. The Falcons go chalk with Dallas Turner. The Bears go with Rome Odunze for Caleb Williams. The Jets, I could see trading back actually, but for now, I'm going to go with a pretty chalky prediction of Brock Bowers, but I don't love it. The Chargers end up getting Olu Fashanu at pick 11, exactly who Jim Harbaugh wants, and he gets extra draft capital in return. I could see the Rams trading up to pick number 12 with the Broncos to go get a Marius Mims. Not a lot of experience, only 8-9 starts with the Bulldogs, but he has nearly an identical wingspan to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Something tells me Sean McVay will pound the table for him. At 13, I've got the Raiders going defense with Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo. And then at 14, the worst-kept secret in the NFL, the Saints need an offensive lineman. So Talisi Fuaga, you're a Saint. At 15, the Colts go Terrion Arnold. I think Byron Murphy's not going to go as high as some of the recent chatter believes he will be. I've got the Seahawks taking him at 16. They need help on that D-line. At 17, Jags go Brian Thomas after losing Calvin Ridley. At 18, the Bengals are going to go Jerzon Johnny Newton after losing DJ Reader to the Lions in free agency. The Broncos traded back with the Rams. I think they go pass rusher with Leatu Latu at 19. I've got the Steelers going offensive line. The Dolphins go with Jared Verse at 21. They lost a lot of pass rushers in free agency. I think the Eagles are going to stay at 22, but they could move up, and they land Cooper DeJean. The Chargers are back in round one with all the trades they made. They go Kool-Aid McKinstry at 23. At 24, I think the Cowboys go get a versatile offensive lineman in Graham Barton. I think at 25, you're going to see the Packers try and replace David Bakhtiari with J.C. Latham. I've got the Bucks getting a new center for Baker Mayfield with Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, the best center in this draft. I think the Chiefs could actually leapfrog the Bills to go steal the number 1 wideout from Buffalo in A.D. Mitchell remaining. And then the Bills take the other Texas wide receiver in Xavier Worthy for Josh Allen's huge arm. At 29, I think the Lions go back to DB like they did in free agency with Nate Wiggins. At 30, I could see Ladd McConkey following his old OC up to Baltimore. At 31, I've got the 49ers going Jordan Morgan. All they really need is help on the O-line. And then at 32, after making a trade with the Chiefs, I have the Cardinals getting a new center for Kyler Murray in Zach Frazier from West Virginia. NC. So let me know what you think of my mock draft. I can't wait to see you guys for round one of the NFL draft. We'll be live here on the channel, so make sure you come hang out with us.